Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and this is Sarah in God's Time. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am going to jump right into our message today because I'm super excited about it. We are going to be reading from Luke 1, 5 through 25. And you can read that whole passage there if you would like. But right now, my first thing that I'm going to start with is asking you a question. The question is, how do you respond to good news? How do you respond to good news? Now, in our story today, we have an announcement of a new child coming into the world. Now, I was really excited about this because me and my husband were super excited when we had our children, both of them. We had our first one, and then about a year and a half later, we found out we were going to expect our second one. So, super exciting news. And what I did was I looked up online funny reactions to announcements for older siblings who were going to become new older siblings. So I found this family who already had 5 children, and they lined up all of their kids, sat them down, and they made this announcement. They said, hey, you guys are all going to have another younger sibling, another baby brother or sister. And the first reaction was really amusing because it was one of, you're joking. This isn't really happening. And whenever it really set in, and their parents are saying, no, you really are going to have another younger sibling, it was just this really big excitement. And so this is related to our story that we have today in Luke 1, 5 through 25. So to give a little bit of background here, we see Zachariah and Elizabeth in this story, and they are considered to be righteous in the sight of God. And you will read that with some of the characters, some of the people in this book, even in the Old Testament, and that they are righteous in the sight of God. So they are loved by God, and they are doing what they should be doing in obeying God. And in this story, even though they are considered righteous in the sight of God, they have this heavy burden that they are in their old age, but they have never had children. And in those days, having a child was considered being blessed by God. So there's a contrast here. They are considered righteous in the sight of God. However, everyone around them and even maybe themselves kind of doubt that they are considered righteous in the sight of God because they do not have children of their own. And this is considered an embarrassment and a curse in those days. However, Zachariah is going to discover something, this great plan that God has for him and his family. And Elizabeth is going to discover it next, this great plan that God has for her and her family in God's time. So now these Zachariah and Elizabeth are too old to have kids. Too old to have kids. And so Zachariah is actually a priest. But because there are 20,000 priests in that time, they did a rotation, or they were chosen by lots who was going to actually do certain acts of service for God. Zachariah actually just happened to be chosen in these casting of lots to go to the temple at a certain time and burn incense and worship God inside the temple on behalf of his people. So he does, he packs up, he goes, and he goes into the temple and he's doing what he's supposed to do as his priestly duties, and he gets in there and he's startled by this angel that is there in the temple to give him a message from God. And his reaction to this message is really interesting. So basically, this angel is there and he tells Zechariah, you and your wife are going to have a son. And this son is going to be used in a very special way for God. So here is how you should make sure that you raise him. And here are the things that he should and should not do in order to be used by God in these certain special ways. And so he starts telling Zechariah about this child and all of these wonderful things that are going to come from this child. And Zechariah's response is really interesting. I love this response because this is kind of, I can be kind of questioning too. And hopefully you are too. But what it says in here is Zechariah asked the angel in response to this great news that he's just been given about how he will have a son. His response is in Luke 1:18, how can I be sure of this? I am an old man and my wife is well along in years. So he's questioning and he's doubting. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. We can ask God questions because God can handle all of our questions. So in response to this, this questioning, God provides Zechariah with exactly what he needs in that moment, which is immediate proof. And the angel basically responds back and says, because you have not believed, God is going to take away your ability to speak. And so you will not be able to say anything until after the child is born. And some people see this as a punishment. Honestly, I see this as God meeting Zechariah where he is and helping him to understand fully the power that God has and the ability that God has and the proof that what God says is going to happen. So he doesn't have to wait until the child is born. He knows right that second because God is showing him. And so he can't speak. So he leaves this temple and he goes back out to the people who are waiting for him, and they realize that he has experienced something incredible because he can't speak. So not only does Zechariah get this great experience of, wow, God just sent his angel to speak with me specifically and tell me this wonderful news. But now all of these people who are outside know that God has moved in Zechariah's life. So then Zechariah finishes up what he's supposed to be doing and he goes home to Elizabeth. And after he returns, Elizabeth becomes pregnant. And she's excited. She gets this excitement, and you can see her excitement and her response at the very end of this story. In Luke 1:25, she responds by saying this, "The Lord has done this for me. In these days he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people." So even, we don't know her immediate response. I'm sure that Zechariah came home and she must have known that something happened because he wasn't able to speak as he was before. And maybe he communicated to her in another way that she was going to be pregnant and have a child. But we don't know her exact response until we read it in this section here after she has become pregnant. So maybe she has hesitation too and doubt too. But by the end of this, when she does realize, wow, I am actually going to have this child that I've been hoping for my entire life, she gets this understanding and she praises God for it because she knows that only God can make this happen. So, my takeaway from this story is, first, we can trust God that our God is going to meet us where we are. Also, we know that He can handle any of our questions or any of our doubts that we have. And another piece that we can take from this is that God is going to follow through with what He says He will do. He's not going to just say that He's going to do something and then not do it. He follows through. And so my hope is that we do not allow the questions or the doubt that we might have to dim or to block or to lessen the excitement and joy that we could receive from the truths that we find in the Bible or in our own time of prayer. Because this is what we were made for. We were designed by God to live full lives in everything that we do, and to have trust in Him that He will carry out His plan in His timing. So, I hope that this has been encouraging for you. I hope that it has been exciting to hear of this truth that God is here with us and that He will carry out His plan in His timing. And that He does have good plans for us, even if we don't see them right this second. I hope that we can look back and see some of the things that He has done, and that we have this hope that there will be things that He will do in our lives moving forward too. And if you do have questions, that's great, because we can explore them together. Now, if you are here for the first time, I'm going to go through this little spew that I have done in the past as well. But if you are looking for answers to questions, I hope that this is a resource that you can use. On my website, sarahingodstime.com, you can actually send me your questions along with your prayer requests. I'm not going to be sharing those with anybody. When you send me your prayers, when you send me your questions, I'm not going to be pointing you out whenever I'm on here. I'm just going to say, hey, we had a friend who has this question. I'm sure that all of us have asked this question at one point. So here is the question, and here is what I have discovered in searching for this answer to this question. So you don't have to be worried about having your name spoken on here. We're just looking to answer your questions. So that's one piece. Also, if this is an interesting topic for you, or if this is a podcast or a devotional time that you think would be good for you to do regularly, you can also subscribe on my page. You're not going to get any kind of messages from me other than those messages in response to your questions. Also, you can find this podcast on YouTube or on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. So please find those places where you listen to your podcasts and subscribe so that you can hear these each week. I give new messages every Sunday afternoon, and we would love to have you join us. So thank you so much for joining today, and I look forward to exploring more truths of the Bible with you throughout the coming months.